My name is Keona, and I'm a 30-year-old housewife. 2 years ago, I married my husband, Aoki, who is 6 years older than me. We live in his parents' house with his parents, Robert and Barbara. They're both in their 60s but are healthy and full of energy. While being energetic can be good, Barbara loves to go out and have fun. I'm not sure if she always acted this way or if it started when I moved in, but she hardly does any housework. Barbara was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom since she never worked, but she often says, "Dinner isn't ready yet. You had plenty of time, didn't you?" She pushes the chores onto me so she can't go out. If I don't finish everything when she comes back, she makes snarky comments. I try to keep my frustration in check. I've told her before that I might not finish everything, but she just brushes it off. She says, "What are you complaining about? It's only natural to do this much." I wish you'd learn from Aoki. If it was just her rude comments, I could handle it. But Barbara always brags about Aoki, especially because he works for a big company, which makes her proud. She likes to say, "Aoki works so hard every day, but his wife is a failure." My husband doesn't stand up for me during dinner when Barbara complains about me. He just says, "Oh, really?" without showing any interest. I thought he was mature when we first met because he was older, but now it feels like he sees me as just someone to take care of the house. Even when I'm doing chores late at night, he doesn't say anything to me. Instead, he throws laundry at me, aiming for my face, and says, "Hey, this too." I regret marrying someone like him. Since we got married, my husband has changed a lot. On our first anniversary, he bought a cake but then threw a pie in my face and laughed. You wouldn't expect that from a 36-year-old man. However, there is some hope in my life because of my father-in-law, Robert. Robert is a very calm person. He always says, "Thank you, Keona," and asks if I need help with anything. He's the only one who treats me kindly in this house. Since I quit my job when I got married, he's the only person I can talk to, and I've come to think of him like a real father. However, Robert works as a senior staff member at his old company, so he's not home during the day. This means I spend a lot of time alone with Barbara. When I talk to Robert, Barbara usually stays quiet, but I can't tell she doesn't like it. Her attitude has gotten worse. She says things like, "Don't make eyes at your father-in-law just because Aoki doesn't pay attention to you. It's disgusting." She says these things where Robert can't hear. I push back and say, "That's not true at all." But she responds, "Oh my, did I hit a nerve? You're even raising your voice. How unbecoming." No matter what I say, she always has a comeback. Our conversations never connect, and I talked to my husband about this. I thought he would understand it was just Barbara's delusion, but he just laughed and said, "So you're even into men over 60. You're really open-minded." I realized it was hopeless. I had no expectations that he would help with housework or stop Barbara's bullying, but I never expected him to say something like that. It was a huge shock, and I started to feel like I didn't belong in this house. One summer day, Barbara said, "I'm thinking of going on a family trip when Aoki gets his summer vacation. You're coming too, right, Keona?" I was surprised to be invited because I thought they would go without me. When I hesitated and said, "No, it's not that," I found it suspicious. I wondered what Barbara wanted by inviting me, but I didn't know how to refuse. That night, my husband asked me again, "You're going on the trip, right?" I told him I was invited, and he burst out laughing for some reason. "What's so funny?" I asked. "Nothing really," he replied, but something felt off, and my anxiety grew. On the day of the trip, we set out, with my husband driving. Robert would join us later because of work, so it was just me, my husband, and Barbara in the car. My husband drove, Barbara sat in the passenger seat, and I was in the back. I could only see their expressions briefly, which made me anxious. "Keona, you withdrew some money for the trip, right?" Barbara asked. "Yes, a few $100s, I replied. She seemed smirky when she heard this. After driving for a while, I noticed we had passed the sign for the place where we were supposed to stay. "Didn't we just pass the inn?" I asked. "There's a tourist spot ahead. We'll check in after we see it," my husband answered. half smiling but looking a bit strange. As we drove further away from the inn, the area around us got greener. I sighed quietly, making sure they didn't hear me. Soon, we arrived at a dam. To be honest, it wasn't a big dam, and there weren't many people there. It was far from being a tourist spot. Come on, let's get out of the car, Barbara urged. Don't leave anything in the car. It could be dangerous, my husband added. I followed their instructions. As I was about to get out of the car, Barbara and my husband were talking about taking off their jewelry and pretending to be busy, not getting out themselves. I finally got out and closed the door. Then I heard the lock click. My husband rolled down the driver's and passenger's windows a bit. He started laughing loudly. Okay, what are you doing getting out here? Are you planning to stay here tonight? I was furious with Barbara, but I tried to stay calm. What do you mean? I asked. You got out on your own, didn't you? My husband was laughing so hard he was holding his stomach. My wallet and cell phone were still in the car, and it felt like everything was going according to Barbara and my husband's plan. Well, Keona, enjoy yourself, Barbara said with a smirk. Eat some grass and sleep outside. My husband, still holding my wallet and flipping through it, closed the window. His laughter faded as they drove away. Well, they're a handful, and it's hot, I muttered to myself. It was the height of summer, and I was at risk of dehydration, but I didn't panic at all. An hour later, I found myself in the lobby of the inn where we were supposed to stay. My husband looked shocked to see me. Are you a ghost? Did something happen at the dam? Barbara looked like she might faint. I thought about pretending to be a ghost but decided against it. I'm not a ghost. I'm staying here tonight, I said, showing them the key to my room. I had already left my luggage there. My husband, clearly confused, started to lose his cool. He seemed to think I had taken the key to their room without permission. What are you doing? Give it back, he said, trying to snatch the key from me roughly. At that moment, a man appeared and grabbed my husband's hand. Sir, please refrain from causing a disturbance here, the man said. He looked about the same age as Robert but was taller and had a strong build, making him seem more reliable than my slightly overweight husband. Who are you? Are you staff here? Do you think it's okay to treat a guest like this? I will sue you for assault, Barbara shouted, joining in against the man who had stepped in. I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I am the owner of this inn, the man said politely. When my husband heard this, he quickly withdrew his hand. I recognized the owner from my college days. I had come to this area on a summer trip with friends. It was an incredibly hot day, and since we didn't have much money, we ended up walking to our accommodation, complaining about the heat. None of us were good at reading maps, so we got lost. While wandering, we found a girl collapsed by the side of the road. That girl was Mary, the owner's daughter. We quickly called an ambulance and helped her until it arrived. The next day, the owner came to the inn where we were staying and thanked us profusely, saying, "You saved my daughter's life. Thank you so much." He invited us to return anytime without charge. Since then, my family and I had visited the inn several times, which is why I recognize the owner now. He was polite but very angry at my husband and Barbara. In fact, both the owner and I knew about their scheme from the beginning. I had noticed something was off when they invited me on this trip, so I set up a voice recorder in the living room to catch their conversations when I was busy, like when I was taking a bath or doing laundry. That's how I discovered their plan. I heard them saying things like, "How about we leave Keona somewhere? That would be hilarious. Oh, let's leave her here." I was shocked. I immediately called the owner and told him everything that was happening. He was furious, especially since his daughter had once collapsed in the heat. Today, he had arranged for my pickup, waiting for my husband and Barbara to leave before sending the inn's shuttle to get me. The driver was Mary from that time long ago. I got my license. Let's go for a drive, Mary said. Great, we chatted happily, and along the way, we bought some local ice cream. We arrived at the inn well before my husband and Barbara. You mentioned suing earlier, ma'am, the owner said, looking at Barbara sternly. Yes, I did. It's outrageous to be accused of something like this, Barbara replied. I'm sorry, but you're not our guests, the owner said. What? Don't mess with us, my husband and Barbara shouted, both getting angry. Your and your mother's reservations have been cancelled, the owner said. Who do you think you are? My husband shouted, clearly about to get angry again, but the owner held him back. Keona didn't do anything wrong. We at the inn cancelled your reservations. If you left a woman alone at a dam in the mountains after stealing her wallet, wouldn't that be a crime? We can't let people like you stay here. We also called the police. Hearing this made my husband and mother-in-law even angrier. What are you talking about? This isn't a joke. You can't get away with this. I work at our company. Just then, Robert arrived late. Hey, what's going on? He sensed a tense atmosphere and looked around. These inn people are weird. Let's stay somewhere else. They're incredibly rude. Barbara and my husband complained to Robert. Instead of listening to them, Robert started asking me and the owner what happened. When he learned the truth, he got furious. You idiots! It was the first time I saw Robert yell, and it was embarrassing. I can't believe we're from the same family. You to get out of here now. My husband and mother-in-law were shocked by Robert's outburst. Get out! Where will we go? My husband said with a forced smile, but Robert was firm. You're disowned. Get out! Don't make me say it again. He pushed my husband away. Just then, the police arrived, and my husband and Barbara turned pale. The owner and I explained the situation to the officers. I played back the conversation from my voice recorder for them. My husband and Barbara started crying, but Robert said, Quiet down. You're disturbing the inn. The officers asked, What's going on here? My husband and Barbara stammered. It wasn't meant to be a big deal. It was just a prank. The officer's expression changed. A prank? Are you serious? Do you think your little joke could ruin someone's life, especially your own wife's? They were scolded harshly. They weren't arrested since it was a family issue, but both looked very pale. This isn't over. Keona's feelings will determine your future. Understand? With that, my husband and Barbara, still looking scared, went home. Robert seemed very sorry. He kept saying, I'm really sorry. I can't apologize enough for not noticing the problems you've been going through and for the awful situation today. He also apologized to the owner of the inn, saying, I'm sorry for this, especially since we're usually treated so well here. We caused so much trouble. The owner of the inn is actually a businessman who runs several companies and is also a client of Robert's workplace. My husband didn't know this and bragged about working for a big company. I'm glad I could get back at my husband and Barbara, but it's scary to think about what could have happened if I hadn't found out about their plan in time. I hope getting scolded by the police made them realize how serious this situation was. After I returned from the inn, I divorced my husband and demanded a lot of alimony. I hope they think about their actions and don't do something like this to anyone else again. I heard that Robert and Barbara also got divorced. Robert cut ties with my ex-husband and kicked him out of the house. My ex-husband was advised to resign because of the incident. He had already been bullying people at work, and it looks like HR was planning to take action against him anyway. I feel disappointed in myself for being with someone like him. Now that he's lost his job, he's been trying hard to find another one, but it's not going well. He should be in a managerial position by now, but he doesn't have the right experience from his last job, and he can't explain why he left. Barbara was kicked out by Robert and is staying with her parents, but they're worried she'll spend all their money because she loves to travel. I think she should get a part-time job since she's still healthy. I also moved out of my in-laws' house and am living alone nearby. I'm still on good terms with Robert and sometimes ask him for advice about work. I was a stay-at-home mom, but now I'm starting a new life. While job hunting, the owner of the inn offered me a position at his company. He wanted to help me after everything that happened, and I was happy to accept. I'm so grateful for all he's done for me. He told me, we're the ones who should be grateful. I feel like I've already repaid my debt from the past, but I still want to give back. The company he introduced me to is well respected and treats its employees well. It's actually in the same industry as the big company my ex-husband bragged about. But this one is 5 times larger. Everyone there is really nice, and I'm having more fulfilling and enjoyable days now than when I was struggling in my marriage.